Hey guys, it's your girl, that clinical instructor, and today we're on our way to my endocrinologist's office at Middletown Medical, going to see Dr. Colo Ideali, who I absolutely adore, and his wonderful staff there at Middletown Med. And today we're going there because I am getting a brand new insulin pump. So to give you a little background, those of you know me know I've been diabetic pretty much my whole life. And in 2006, I started pumping for the first time, insulin pump. I had a Medtronic MiniMed Paradigm 722. And listen, I had some great years with Medtronic, but I feel like it's time for a change now. I know a lot of people in the diabetic online community who have switched from Medtronic to Omnipod and say they would never go back. The biggest difference between Medtronic and Omnipod is one thing: no tubing. If you are or ever have been a Medtronic MiniMed insulin pump user, you have gotten your cord, your tubing, caught on like everything. Door handles, the handle of the oven, you name it. And you've ripped that thing out a couple of times and then went, awesome, I don't have an extra one. This is a non-issue with an Omnipod. There's no tubing. It's all wirelessly, kind of like Bluetooth. And you fill up the little pod and it stays on you, and there's nothing that tethers you to the PDM, the personal diabetes manager. That's the little, Palm Pilot that comes with it. So that's a really wonderful thing. The other nice thing is if I want to go swimming, or I want to go in the hot tub, or I want to get in the shower, I have to disconnect my Medtronic pump. And of course the site stays in place, but I have to put a little cap on it to prevent infection from happening. But I have to be without the pump, which means I don't have insulin flowing while I'm on it. So this is not a good thing. I want to stay connected and flowing to my insulin at all times. And with the Omnipod, I can do that. So I'm really, really excited. So I'm on my way up there today to meet Omnipod's trainer, Melissa, and she's going to teach me how to use the Omnipod pump. Yeah, I've been a diabetic, and I've been a pumper, and I've been a healthcare provider for a long time, but guess what? This is still new technology. From what I understand, the basal and bolus rates and the carb to insulin ratios, insulin sensitivity ratios, these things are all about the same. But it's just a matter of learning how that specific, meter works, how that technology works. So we're on our way there now. I am really, really excited. I want to give a little shout out to my people at Omnipod, to Will and Dan for making this happen for me today. You guys worked really, really hard to make sure that I had my Omnipod and make sure I had my all my supplies so I could be training with Melissa today before she goes on her very much deserved vacation. So thank you, Dan and Will at Omnipod, so very much. All right, guys, so we're on our way there now, and we'll see you when we get there. Are you filming? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm unboxing my Omnipod. I'm so excited. I've been a Medtronic pumper for a really long time. And, it did its job, but I'm really excited to switch to Omnipod now. So I'm here for my training, Dr. Ideali's office in Middletown Medical. And here we go. I'm unboxing my PDM, my personal diabetes manager. And we're going to put in some batteries because, well, the important things here. Mm-hmm. Awesome, awesome. Awesome. Don't mind my camera woman is eating non-diabetic friendly snacks. It's okay. Oh, look at that. Ooh, baby. So exciting. So exciting.
Alright, so we're gonna... Oh, and I have pods. You're getting your pods today?
Yeah. They'll probably be there when I get home, actually. But I'm like, that doesn't really help me right now.
But I even said, I said to Sandra when I spoke with her, I said, even if you didn't get your PDM by then, I would be able to have you use one of mine, and then when you got yours, we would take it back, and then...
Little cameraman here, my camera woman.
I was about to say, excuse me.
Camera woman.
I ain't no man.
We're going to fill our very first pod. I'm very excited for no more tubing. No more tubing. Marvelous. Okay. All right, and then from here, so needle stays in place?
Yep, and you're just going to put it right into...
90 degrees,
yep.
Right? Awesome. And down it goes?
Down it goes, and you're going to hear it beep twice. And the 2 beeps just mean that you filled it with the at least minimum amount of insulin of 85 units. And then it can get ready to activate.
And then
out, comes
out, good, right?
Out.
Okay. We're never supposed to recap. Don't recap your needles.
And that's why.
Yeah, don't recap your needles. Okay.
Right. With these ones, then what we immediately then do so that we never have an issue, sharps garbage.
Beautiful.
So we teach right away to do that.
Absolutely.
Done.
No needle stick injuries. Okay.
Exactly.
So now I'm gonna hit next.
Yeah.
Right.
So if you wake up any screen here, so
Okay.
it'll say fill a new pod with insulin. We
Right.
did after filling listen for 2 beeps. We heard the beeps.
We did.
And then it says note, do not remove the needle cap, referring to that piece there.
Okay.
So you press next, and then you just put them right next to each other, and it's going to say priming. And what it's doing here is priming the insulin all the way, bringing it to the top. So instead of pressing and holding in your
You didn't fill your tubing like we did.
takes
Absolutely. Which does take forever, yes.
You waste a lot of insulin sometimes. If there's a
Yes.
bubble, you got to go through the whole line.
Yes, that's frustrating. Mm-hmm.
And so what it's also doing is it's taking all of the settings we programmed into this PDM and putting it in this pod. So
That's
if
so
you
cool.
are out on a call, busy, running around, if you're in a hospital base, anything, you don't have to have your PDM next to you. You only need it within 5 feet when it's time to bolus yourself insulin. So as a safety feature, if you left this here and went home and somebody said, "Ooh, look at this cool cell phone," and they tried to pick it up and deliver, there you can't get that. They
that's
cannot bolus
awesome.
you insulin. It just has to be within 5 feet of you to make an adjustment to
Awesome.
the settings or to deliver insulin.
So let's say that, Jordy, you can film stuff other than just the pump, you know. Ooh, there we go. So let's say I have like a crazy morning and I happen to forget the PDM at home. Will it still deliver my basal rate all
Yes.
day?
Yep.
Okay, good.
It will
Like,
deliver your
just
basal
in
rate all
case.
day, and so a good idea to have is extra insulin on you, so that
Okay.
if you did need to bolus, you could just manually give yourself a bolus,
Okay,
because
sure.
you can't, like I said, remotely have somebody do it.
Sure.
The only downside of if you don't have the PDM on you is if it alerts that it's going low on insulin or an error happens or something, a hazard alert,
I won't
you
know.
need the PDM to be able to tell you why the pod is beeping.
Okay. All right. Awesome. Awesome. Okay, great. So now, prepare infusion site, remove pod's needle cap, and cannula sticks as shown below. Disregard. Okay. So, as far as infusion site, do you have a... Oh, that would be awesome. We're going to get a little up close and personal with that clinical instructor here. And look, I still have like adhesive on me from the hospital from the electrodes. I can like never get rid of them.
Oh, I have adhesive remover too.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
For that.
Yeah, that would be awesome. You know, that stuff is forever. And I have like, you know, leads here, lines there, DK is a blast.
Fun times, you know?
Oh, some fun times, exactly. Fun times. Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Need that for when I leave Band-Aids on for too
I
long.
know, right?
Yeah. After I had my daughter, I had, so many things for between IVs and everything. For weeks I couldn't get it off. I also didn't have the energy to try to scrub it off.
With a new baby, yeah. Absolutely. Alright. Cousin preps. Awesome. And so we're gonna prep. Prep. So I can put the pod any place that I can
That you
inject
would
insulin.
inject. Yep. And when you
Awesome.
when you put it anywhere on your torso, you want the pod to be sideways, either facing in or facing out. And then if you decide
So,
to put it on your
Not
legs,
this way, this
right,
way?
that
Okay.
way, or facing in. Yep.
So this
Yep.
or this.
If
Okay.
you put it on your legs or the back sides of your arms, you want it either up or down.
Okay. All right. Just to help it not catch on things, sort of thing. Okay. All right. So then next, so I'm going to.
So it'll tell you here, prepare infusion site. We did remove the pod's needle cap. That is this piece here, and you're just going to break it off.
Break it off. Just
Yep, just
Like
give it
up?
like a up, like sort of like taking off a soda can. You're just going to kind of pop it off.
okay. Oh gosh.
There you go.
Uh-huh.
If cannula sticks out as shown below, press discard. So we don't
Okay.
see the little cannula.
We
that
don't.
would be a safety feature.
Okay. Awesome.
If something was wrong with it.
Great.
So we can press next.
Okay. So we're going to remove the adhesive backing.
Yep.
So it says the two pieces here and here.
And then you're going to place it on your skin.
Okay. So we said sideways, right?
Yep. And with this, just like giving an injection or an infusion site, at least an inch or two away from belly button, so it's
Okay.
a perfect spot because
Good.
you want to absorb insulin while there.
Awesome.
Good.
Awesome.
It
Ooh.
beeps because it's reminding you you're not done, so that if you missed
Okay.
a step and didn't insert the cannula, it just reminds you you're not done.
Okay.
Because it becomes so easy to do, you can almost go on autopilot.
Awesome. Okay.
So we did that. A pod is okay. Apply to site. Next.
Okay. And this is neat. I don't have to put the needle in myself. It does it for
does
me.
it
That's
for
a
you.
really, really cool
Yep.
feature. Okay, so we're going to hit start.
And then it's going to be a few clicks. And then the pop noise is the needle retracting back and leaving the cannula under your skin about now.
Wow.
Pod is on.
Did you feel it?
Barely.
It's
I
a very-
barely felt it.
It's really, because it does it at 1/200th of a second, it's a quick in and out, same depth and angle every time. So there's none of that user error with the tube pump of the way putting it on. Did you angle it right? Did you push too hard? Things like that.
Yes.
So from here, it'll say pod is active. Basal 1 has been programmed. Check your infusion site and cannula. Well, how would you know your cannula is properly inserted? My rule is 3 Ps. Did you hear a pop? You
Yes.
did. Did you feel a pinch? You did.
Yes.
And then do you see that the window turned pink?
Oh, yes.
Which is right there. It was back here. It just meant it fired the cannula forward and it's
Awesome.
in. And then my little teaching portion of that, which as you're somebody who would be aware of it, the way you know that it's on and working is how your blood sugars are doing.
Yeah,
So
sure.
you're new to using a pod, so for any reason you banged it really hard into something and you weren't sure that the cannula had come out, if you bolus and you give yourself insulin, if in 2 hours that blood sugar hasn't come down, we're going to safely assume something's not working right because we know insulin works to bring it down.
Right.
So it's the same thing as if you had your tubed pump and you snagged it onto something.
Sure.
But you weren't sure if it came out, and then maybe you saw insulin or if you felt wetness there.
Okay.
Important so that to prevent DKA with
Yes.
this, because if it comes out, you know that if it's not working properly and you're not getting the insulin, you're not absorbing insulin, and then your body's not producing it, so the likelihood of ketones can increase.
Sure.
That's
Okay.
the most important part
Awesome.
of it.
So I know when I was doing a little reading about it this morning, it said that once you put in that first pod, I know what my blood sugar was before I put it in, to give it a check in a couple of hours, then I'll know, hey, is
you'll
this doing
know
what it's supposed
exactly.
to?
And then to
Yeah.
bolus on the Omnipod, all you're going to do is press and hold the home button,
Oh, okay, so
and that
a
turns
little
it
house.
on.
Oh, look, see, it's
Yeah.
this guy's pump. That's awesome.
You know it's yours. And then the confirmation button will move. It's a safety feature so that if it's in your pocket, it's a lot of steps for it to turn on so that you can't pocket bolus.
Yes, awesome.
So is it properly inserted? Yes.
It sure is.
Then it'll bring up your status screen. So whenever you're within 5 feet, this screen will come up. If it ever says skip or status not available, it doesn't mean the pod is not working. It's just that it needs to pick up the signal for it. And what I like to do is adjust the screen timeout. So if you go home
Okay.
and then go down to settings, this is your main menu,
Awesome.
and press select,
Okay.
and then go to system setup,
Okay.
and select. And then PDM options, and select, and then screen timeout.
Oh, yes.
So that while you're learning the
Yeah.
screens, they will keep
It's right,
out.
it's like
Yep.
so annoying. Yes.
And then
so
if you want
I'm
to
gonna go
adjust that to 60.
Yes.
And then same thing with the backlight timeout. And
Yes.
select and then 60.
60. Yes.
So
thank
now
you.
you're, it will stay on longer. And then you can always go back, but you can also just go ahead and press the home button. Main menu.
Oh,
So you bolus most often, first thing that comes up. So
Sure.
if you were bolusing, you can go up there and we can put an example in. Let's select.
Okay.
You would enter your blood sugar.
Sure.
And then the next screen is going to say, are you going to eat? You
And then
press
what's
yes or no. You
your
enter your
carb count.
carbs, and then
Okay.
your blood sugar comes up.
Awesome.
I mean your dose.
Yeah. Mhm.
And if you go back from here, more actions is where you would go when it's time to change your pod. So if you press select,
Okay.
you just press change pod, and it'll tell you to deactivate the pod by just pressing the button. It turns it off. Then you get a new pod. You
Awesome.
put a new one on.
You go
you-
through the
Yeah.
again.
Same steps. You can add blood sugars from another meter, so if you wanted to store them in here, you can. You can assign edit tags, so you can mark exercise, illness, lots of different things, so that
Chinese
when you download,
food.
yep, you can see now.
Precisely.
And then there's a food library in here with about 1,000 foods and the carb content.
Oh, now that's awesome. See, now Medtronic
So now you
does
don't
not-
gotta like look it up.
Exactly.
Right, I usually use my Fitness Pal because
Yep.
Medtronic doesn't have that.
It's
No, I
like
don't have-
sometimes before Fitness Pal, we'd be at the like diner or restaurant, and she'd be looking like through Google for hours.
Yes,
Just
Yep.
definitely. Like,
So
where
now
is
you have it in there, and
That's
then if you
amazing.
go done here, I'll just bring you back out, and then if you go back one more, temp basal, if you decided you wanted to temporarily
Right.
increase or decrease.
Good
your-
for sick days.
Yep. And then you have your records, and then if you go to settings, you have the ability if you needed to add more basal programs, so let's say workday, weekend, lots of things, you can program different settings.
Awesome.
Like, so you can flip over to weekend basal or workday or when you work nights or something like that,
See, now
and
that's
make a
great.
whole new basal pattern.
That's so great, and it'll be there. It's not like I have to go in and let me.
Nope, all you have
I
to do is
select
just
the one.
switch the one that you
Sure.
want, and then remember when you need to go back to your other one, just switch back to the other one.
Awesome.
And then you have presets. So if you decided that there were certain, you can put temporary basal presets, so certain exercises, things like that, or illness.
Okay.
But you can also do carbohydrate presets. So if you decided that you knew, and I'll show you on my example PDM.
So say like I eat grape nuts all the time, then I'll go in and I can find like my grape nuts.
Yep. So on mine, if I go to bolus, I have presets in here. I'm going to put a number in. Use bar calculation yet? Am I going to eat? So since I have presets, I can either manually enter the carbs,
Okay.
or if I'm going to go, okay, Gino's Pizza. Every time I eat there, it's 60 grams. It already pre-populates it, and then your dose.
God.
So you can just, and then if I have a snack, apple and peanut butter, that's something I always eat.
Amazing.
40 grams for what I usually eat. So you can start to customize things. You don't have to do that, but if you know your creatures of habit and there's similar foods you eat,
We tend to eat
and
the same
instead
things
of
all the
having to
time.
always try to figure out those carbs, you can do presets in there.
Yes. Oh my
so you
God.
have all of
That's
that.
phenomenal.
And then if you go back, and you can do bolus presets, that's mostly like when it's fixed doses, so we're not doing that
Sure.
often. And
Sure.
then back. System setup is where you would go to make all of your adjustments. If you needed to adjust your bolus, your basals, or your calculations,
Sure.
your alerts and reminders. The BG meter just goes over if you wanted to change the range of what your goal was. You can manage it. You want the sound on or off. You can change your tag list. And then if you go back from here. PDM options is just where if you wanted to change your ID screen, your screen timeout, or the lock, you can lock it. Like when we have little kids using it, we lock it so that they can't do anything to it.
Sure. Awesome.
And diagnostics you would only need if the customer care team needed you
Said,
to
hey, run your diagnostics. Okay, awesome.
When you change your batteries in the back, 2 AAA batteries, it does not reset anything. You just put new batteries in and everything's stored in there.
So I know like with the Medtronic pump, if you have the batteries out or dead too long, it'll like erase.
All that it would really make you do is put the date and time back in for it. But if you had it out for like a month, I think you may need to reset your settings. But Dr. Ideali will always have a copy of your settings, and then I can walk you through that if needed.
Just in case.
And I'll give you my card.
Yes, please. No. So it's been about a month now, a little over a month now that I've had my Omnipod, and there's been a little hiccups and bumps, like anything else. When you have something new, when you're making a drastic change in something you're used to, you're gonna have little bumps in the road. So I'm lucky enough to have the best staff in the world at Omnipod and at Dr. Ideali's office, and any of the problems that I've had, they have worked out. Will and Melissa have listened to me vent and get ridiculous, and we lifelong diabetics tend to get a little bit dramatic sometimes when things aren't going our way. And I had actually gotten really sick one night because I had a pod go bad, and I didn't realize it went bad. The one thing I can say about Medtronic pumps is that when your Medtronic pump site goes bad, that thing alerts you. I mean, like, will wake you out of a dead, like, ambient slumber. So with this, once or twice I had pods go bad and I didn't know. So I ended up inherently getting very sick. Part of that was my fault. I should have been checking my blood sugar a little bit closely during that time, but again, I'm very brittle. If you've seen my live lectures on diabetes, you know that when somebody's a very severe or bad diabetic, they call us brittle. Doesn't necessarily mean we're non-compliant. It just means that we're uncontrolled. And there's a difference between non-compliant and uncontrolled, guys. So I should have been checking my blood sugar a little bit closer, but everybody at Omnipod's been wonderful. When I called Omnipod customer care to report the problems with the pods that I had go bad, they actually had me, they took down the lot numbers, expiration dates, everything. They replaced that whole box of pods that the 2 were from, and they even replaced the insulin that was wasted. So that was really wonderful. Omnipod, thank you so much. So I've experimented with different places putting the pods. For the most part, I've had them on my belly, like you saw when I put the new one in, but I've experimented a little bit with having them on my arm. So this one I have on my arm right now, which
the first 2 times I put them on my arms, it didn't go quite as well as I would have liked, and I kept like knocking into things and like dislodging them. But like anything else, like I said, you just have to get used to it. Just like if you have a Dexcom or any other continuous glucose monitor and you put it there, you just got to be careful. So I'll show you a little bit more about it, things that my wonderful CDE, BSN Melissa, didn't get a chance to really go over so much because she had a very limited time to work with me and managed to, you know, assess my knowledge and was able to give me the right amount of training that I needed per my education and knowledge level in the best time constraints that she and I had. And she did an awesome job. So I have this awesome little case, which it actually looks enormous, but it holds like so much, so it's kind of awesome. So there's a spot on the outside for an ID, or the pods come with these little cards that say I am a diabetic, so you know, people can say, oh God, wow, she's not, you know, acting crazy because there's you know, she's like drunk or something. Like the time that I went to Jersey Shore University Medical Center, and the nurse that had been there for like 100 million years is trying to tell the first year resident she's in DKA, and he's like, she's drunk, I smell the alcohol on her. And she gives him the look. That didn't go well for him. I wasn't drunk, by the way. I don't drink. I was in DKA. Anyway, so this bad boy is really, really nice. So it's got a spot for my vial of Humalog in there, my test strips, my Lancet pen, and then all the crap over here. I have extra pods, batteries, all that stuff. And then, of course, is my pod itself. So, of course, I had to be a dork, and it actually says Kai's Pump on it. It shows up backwards, I think, but it says Kai's Pump, and I made it purple and green, and it's all sorts of pretty. So, shows you my last blood sugar is 130. I have my basal rate running. Things are going very well. I actually have been using the glucometer option on this thing, and it's nice because Melissa had discussed how it does have that option, the glucometer option. I didn't even realize that it was as easy to use as it was, and I already have freestyle test strips for a different meter, and the freestyle test strips are what works in the PDM. And of course, this is easiest because then when I'm going to give my bolus, when I'm eating, my blood sugar is already in there. There's no option you have to go and you know, select. You just simply stick the test strips in the bottom. I love that. And then fire away. Filling the pod, as you saw earlier in the video, is really, really easy. Actually, Jordan, my camera woman there, if I didn't give her credit, that was my almost 14-year-old daughter, Jordan, that was filming the whole thing. She's my little rock star. She's gonna be a nurse one day. Yay. She's actually the one that fills my pods most of the time. She loves doing it. She's good at it. You know, why not let her? So overall, I have to say I've had a very positive experience, not just with the pump itself, but with the customer care, but with, you know, my nurses, you know, financial, with tech support, customer care. Everybody over there has been really, really wonderful. I do have to say I like this better than my Medtronic pump. In no way, shape, or form am I bashing Medtronic. Like I said, I had some really wonderful years with Medtronic pumping, and they were great. Carrie is one of the CDEs way out in Texas who handles a lot of the, you know, type 1 diabetic cases. She's a type 1 diabetic herself. If you ever have to deal with Medtronic, Carrie's the girl you want to talk to. And she's really great. Everybody was great there, but it was time for me to move on. I love not necessarily being tethered to my pump all the time. You know, as long as I'm not needing to actively give myself a bolus, I can walk around the house and leave this thing upstairs at my bedside. You know, if I leave it in the car and you know, Jordan and I are, you know, going to the park to go for a run, I don't have to take this with me. In even worst case scenario, God forbid, I were to forget this thing at home, you know, oh crap, I went to work, now I'm in Manhattan for the whole day because I'm at work and this thing is home. It's okay. It's still going to deliver my basal rates all day. I just can't give boluses via the PDM, via my pump. So worst case scenario there, I give myself injections for the day and try to be less absent-minded, you know, or just leave this thing in my purse all the time and just go to it when I need to give. So, you know, that's really the only complaints that I have. The only other thing is just that it sticks out pretty far off of the skin, as you can see there. You know, it stands up pretty tall. So I tend to knock it into things. For those of you older adults, certain adult activities can get in the way if it's on your abdomen. That's caused a pod problem twice. So just think about what you're doing, where you're putting it, depending on what your activities are going to be for the next 2 days. There's one function on the pump, one feature about the pump that I think is both a good and a bad thing. I can't cheat and refill this thing and use it for longer than I'm supposed to. So if you're a Medtronic pumper, don't even lie and say that you have kept your site in, only for the 72 hours every time, and you always change it after 72 hours, and you always use a new reservoir and a new infusion set, because you're lying. Don't even tell me that you have never reused, a reservoir, that you have never just so you've reused your site. So I can't do that with these, which is a pain in the butt, because then there's that time when I'm like, oh, but I still have all this insulin left over. I'm getting kind of low on pods. I know I need to order them, but my insurance is being a pain in the butt, because they know what really is right for us, not our doctors and nurses. It's great. It's like still my big gripe, but I can't reuse it. This is a good thing though, because it prevents things like infection. I have a very good friend named Mark, who is a fellow EMT. He and I used to work a critical care ambulance together. We had a blast, and he is also a type 1 diabetic like me, was an insulin pumper. He is the other half of Team Beaties. We were the best EMS crew ever. And Mark actually left the site in for too long and got a horrible staph infection. He had it on his arm where I have mine, and ended up with this huge gaping wound that had to be packed and debrided for a couple of months. This thing, he had a staph infection. I mean, it was bad. He was on IV antibiotics for a while. So, and he will even tell you that he left his site in too long. He knows better. He's a good diabetic, but we do these things. So you can't do that with these, which on the patient end of things is like, ugh, but on the nursing end of things, that's a good thing. We really shouldn't be doing that anyway, guys. And honestly, your endocrinologist, if they're not a type 1 themselves, will have a fit, like Dr. Matthew does when she finds out that I do this stuff. So anyway, overall, I have to say my experience is really good. I like my Omnipod very much. I'm having a good experience overall. So that's it. I wanted to wait a little bit longer before I actually posted this whole video, because I wanted to give you the update on how I'm doing with this thing after a month now. So I love it. I'm happy. I want to say thank you one more time to everybody at Dr. Colo Ideali's office. Tracy, Sandy, you guys are wonderful. Dr. Ideali's the best. Again, thank you to Will, Dan, Melissa at Omnipod for all your help and support. Thanks, Jordan, for being my camera woman, my mini nurse, and my #1 fan. And thanks for stopping by. Keep checking back for more of that clinical instructor videos. Until then, dream big.